Well, welcome to the Economy Creators Podcast. My name is Mary Farias, your host, and today I have a special treat for everybody. I have Sara Troy with me, and she is a pro podcaster and book developer, and she shares the experience and the wisdom from those who have acquired it. Sara, welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Pleasure. Thank you for me being on your podcast. It was a delight having you on mine.
Oh, thank you. It was so much fun. I love having conversations with people who kind of quote get it in the
Mm.
sense that there is more to life than just this um, back and forth of of life. There's
Yeah.
something deeper in it.
Yes.
More than the
Yes.
senses, right?
Yeah. And more than just
So
survival. Yeah.
yes, more than just survival, and more than that guy just cut me off, right? And we
Yes.
we we need to encompass all of life. I
Mm.
love it. So you are a charming, charming woman, and I'm so happy that you're here with me today. And I have a question for
Mhm.
you. You've been a podcaster for a long, long time, and you say you're a pro podcaster, which so many podcasters would love to be in that echelon. So tell us a little bit about your background, Sara.
Well, actually, April 4th will be 14 years in podcasting.
Oh,
And in June,
congratulations,
13 years with my
14
own
years.
network. So, yeah. So, a long time, about 3,000 shows in that time, somewhere around there. Um, And it was a rocky start. I was asked to join someone's network. I'd like you to come and have your own podcast on my network. And I went, what's a podcast? That was 2012. They really weren't around that much. And the first one I did, it was live. I was with her live for 13 months and I pressed all the wrong buttons. And she said, are you there? Are you there? And I'm swearing like I'm thing, trying to get on there. But doing the live shows really I kind of call it the soap opera thing because they have very little time to rehearse and they're doing it, right? So it's people would drop or people wouldn't turn up or all sorts of things would happen and you're in the moment. So it was really good training. And so when I started my own, didn't know how to format it, didn't know how to do anything because I really didn't have too many other templates out there. And other than someone at the time doing the audio for me, this was my gig. And just learning as you go. This doesn't work. This would work better. I'm going to change this. Now this is the format. And, just allow yourself to expand as you go.
I love that word, allowing.
I know. Mhm.
Yeah. So when did you start learning how to allow in your life?
Oh, it has been a roller coaster. And because the allowing has always been the louder voice, but the trying to fit in was the kind of what I call the human voice. So the spirit voice was saying, just surrender, allow, I've got you, walk the path. And then the human side is, yeah, yes, but if you don't look like this, and if you don't this, and you're not this, and you're not that, and trying to be what everybody else wanted and bending into a pretzel, I had this fight back and forth for a long time. But the allow was always there. I just didn't always pay attention to it.
Yeah. Well, and I think we talked about this when I was on your podcast. The still small voice speaks as loud as we're willing to
Mm.
listen,
Mhm.
right? Right?
Yes.
It's not going to say, Do this now." It's just going to suggest something.
Yeah, exactly. And it's up to us to pay attention, right? But
Right.
that expectation voice, I call it can be louder because that expectation is you must look a certain way, act a certain way, be a certain way. Otherwise, you will not be accepted in life or you'll be, judged or penalized or, jeopardized. And when you've been conditioned in that way, which is a false um, presentation of life, when you've been conditioned that way, we're always too scared to take another path and listen to the smaller voice until eventually that smaller voice says, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, wackaroo. Here's the cosmic 2x4. Have I got your attention now?
Yeah. Well, how many lessons do we have to learn until we get there, huh?
So many.
Yeah, and that can be the frustrating part for so many
Mm,
people, and then they try to manhandle things into
mm,
being,
mhm.
right? I
Exactly.
used to be one of those people.
I mean, we all are because we've all been brought up in the conditioning. right? And it's when we realize, we know as children it's wrong, but we want to please, right? We want to please our parents, please our teachers, please, please, please. And we want to fit in, we want to have friends. So, we don't want to be different because being different is kind of ostracized. And so, if we have that kind of conditioning, it's very, very hard to listen to that inner voice and that inner guidance unless you find
Yeah.
those moments of peace and silence where you can hear it.
You know, you mentioned wanting to fit in, and I went to a Catholic school with uniforms, and we
Mhm,
could wear any shoes that we wanted, but I wanted Nikes because everybody else had them.
mhm, mhm.
So not only did we have the uniforms, but we
Yeah.
all wanted to wear the same shoes,
Uniform shoes, yes. Exactly. Yes,
right?
every school I went to had a uniform. So I was brought up in England, so all uniforms.
Right.
And Clark's shoes, they would have to either be leather or, strap or lace up. We had a choice of that, but runners, trainers as we call them back there, they were for the gym. They were not for anything else.
Right. Well, I think that it's evolved with the times, I guess, too,
Yes. Yeah.
back in the day, penny loafers were a big thing here.
Mhm, mhm, mhm,
So
mhm.
so you grew up in England. When
Yes.
did you sojourn over to this continent?
Oh, actually, a long time later, I went to South Africa. I had 11 and a half years there. In that time, I also traveled Europe and America, and I lived in America for 6 months, and then went back to South Africa, got engaged, got unengaged, and just kind of, I was living in Johannesburg in a place called Hillbrow, which we nicknamed Hellbrow Jailburg because it's a very concrete jungle and a great deal of violence there. And I'd been living in the Cape, which is beautiful. And so kind of became very jaded there. And so finally thought, no, this is not my soil anymore. And I had friends that had moved to Canada, and I thought, I'll go over to Canada on my way back to the States. And I came here, met
Mm.
my ex-husband 5.5 months later, and, I've been here coming up this year, 46 years to Canada. I'm in
Wow.
Canada. So,
Right, right. How wonderful. Isn't that wonderful to have been able to travel all over
mm,
and kind of test the waters and see where you
yes.
wanted to land?
I am so grateful. I think everybody should get out there and travel before they commit to anything because
Mhm.
it's an education in itself. But the biggest education is the discovery of self, in situations, in immersing yourself in other cultures. I've known numerous people that, were going to go to university to study this, and then some sort of crisis came up when they were traveling. And like, no, this is what's needed. This is where I need to be. And I think it's, again, from school to university to job, where do you have time for that self-discovery? So I think travel's very important.
Yeah, I agree, and, in fact, I'm the youngest of 11 children, and I'm really the only one that has ventured away from
Mm,
our home state of
yeah.
Minnesota. Um, 1 or 2 have kind of dabbled with it, but
Mm,
for the most part, I've been the one that's been away the longest, which is really interesting to me. My mom was always excited that everybody's close enough, except for you, to come home
yes.
for dinner.
Yes. And it's not something I relate to. Even now, I live on Vancouver Island. I have a daughter with my 3 grandbabies, 10 minutes away. And then I have another son and daughter that live over on the mainland, which is a ferry away. And we go, try and get together as much as possible. And so when we do get under one roof, it's a treat. But I couldn't relate to being in one place all my life. I think I've got that nomadic type thing inside of me.
Yeah.
Discovery, wondrous. What else is out there?
Right. Well, and that leads me to my next question, that inner pull. So,
Mm,
have you always felt drawn to express yourself in a different way than somebody else, or in a, maybe describe the work that you do and then describe that how the pull showed up for you?
Well, growing up, I was a very sickly child and spent a great deal of time in bed and go back to school where they think I was a new kid because I've been away for so long. So it was a very I was incredibly shy, really scared to be around a lot of people. And then at 14, we moved to South Africa, and suddenly I'm thrown into a different world. And I've actually decided, I did write my own book 2 years ago, but somebody said to me, I'm 71. And then someone said to me, but that's 7 decades. And when you look at it as 7 decades and not a number, right? It's like, so I've decided to do a podcast for every decade. And it's like kind of me going, although I did it in a book, but it's also, kind of each 10 years looking at it that way. So I was shy. I always got on with elders. I loved the one-on-one conversation. And, I had that sense of knowingness about me. I always had a message for them, though, which was downloaded. So loved with elders and loved philosophy. I loved being in small groups and there, that kind of intimacy. I was a storyteller back then as well. But that was, the journey of exploration, and I kind of started coming out of my shell. And then, became South Africa's first go-go dancer at 16 or
Wow,
15.
really?
Because my brother had the first mobile discotheque there, and then a boyfriend and I started the second one. And that was extraordinary, because you're playing at parties, corporate parties, weddings, all sorts of things. And it was just, you're setting the atmosphere with the music, and I'm teaching people how to go dance, and that was fun.
That's
So I think it was a slow process for me to come into who I am today, very slow, because along the way there was always that somebody telling me I either wasn't enough or I shouldn't be the way I am. So kind
Mhm.
of course correcting to try and appease them, and leaving myself behind, but always that pull to bring me back.
Yeah. Yeah, and did you feel it kind of natural for yourself to listen to that voice, or did you have to teach yourself to do that?
Both. There were times where it was just like, just so, when you take a deep breath, it just is, right? And, many times I get the just is. And you can argue with me as much as you'd like, but I'm sorry, it just is. I have to follow this path. But if I didn't get that clear, it just is. And I'm busy trying to appease. And, I'm now a recovered people pleaser. But for a long time, I was, the people pleaser. Um, and in trying to please everyone else, I lost myself. So it was a constant pull back and forth, both sides.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and people pleasing is, like you said earlier, we start off that way. Our
Yeah.
parents expect us to be
Mhm.
pleasing to them, right?
Yes.
And if we're not like our brother or our sister, what's wrong
Mhm.
with us? Or vice versa, right? And our teachers, we have to be good little students and
Mhm.
not make waves and don't ask too many questions, but ask enough. Where there's
Yeah.
this fine
Stay
line that
within
we're
your
all trained.
parameters. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
yes, no, you hit a nerve there. Because, I do feel that we take the spirit of a child and everything that they are, all that wonderment and exploration and everything, and then we put them at a desk. And this is what you're going to learn, and this is all you're going to learn. And the questions have to be within those parameters. And we don't want you thinking out there. And it's all a form of kind of control and limitation, of churning people out to be so much and not really feeding the essence of who they are as a child to become what they're really meant to be.
yeah. Yeah, I agree, and I homeschool my daughter because
Mhm.
I want her to think outside of the box. I want her to be able to not not just be told what to learn, but I want her to be an active participant in that learning.
Yes. Yes. Be
Mm.
inquiring. I think that's something that we've lost as adults, is that inquisitiveness, that wonderment, that sense of adventure. So many people get caught up in a rut and they're unhappy, but they don't know how to sort of get out of that rut. And it's just, a little sense of adventure. Read something different to what you normally read. Watch something different. Go and do something different.
Yeah.
It's just explore.
Yeah, I know. There's so much out there. There's so much
Mhm.
out there, and we're
Mhm.
so limited to just what we can see.
Right. I mean, what
Yeah.
was it about you? Siblings, 10 other siblings that all stayed in one area, and you're saying, no, 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 I've got wings. I need to fly. And I'm sure you had a lot of pressure from all of them. No, just stay close. We want you to be close. And you're going, no, these wings are flapping.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't even come home for the summers. I left and and
Yeah.
a day had
Mm-hmm.
gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's that taste of freedom, and
Mm.
freedom is so important. We train that out of our kids too, don't we?
Yes, yes, we do. What is freedom? Conformity, being popular. That ain't freedom. Freedom is to be
Right.
able to question, right? And
Yeah.
we don't have that enough in society right now. We don't have enough people questioning. They're buying the headlines. Whatever the headlines are, they're not reading content or context. They're not inquiring. They're not questioning. And they're just being calm sheeple.
Yeah.
And I think we've all been a sheeple at some point.
Absolutely. We were probably all trained to be.
Yes, we were. We were. And it's breaking free of that, right?
Yeah.
I'm the
Yeah.
black sheep. No.
I definitely am.
Relate, relate.
Yeah. Well, Sarah, you have such an incredible business swirling around you and an economy swirling around you. You
Mhm.
are the epitome of economy creator. So, do you want to share a little bit about all the things that you're involved in? Because there are quite a few.
Yes, there are quite a few. Yes. And so, as I said, I've been podcasting now close to 14 years and 13 years with my own network. And 2017, I put out an ebook, where what I call a podcast book. So it correlates with podcasts with the person who's written the chapter. And then 2024, or early 24, I put out the Our Forgotten Children book. And it's an anthology around the raising of our children, the systems that are wrong, things that we need to be aware of. Because I firmly believe when you're aware, you care. When you care, you start to do something about it, but you can't be unaware anymore. So the next book that I'm doing is Our Forgotten Seniors. So I'm gathering seniors right now, and I contribute a chapter, which they can do by Zoom. They can just speak it because we can transcribe it. And, then the audio and everything is there. And it's sharing all their wonderful triumphs, their contribution that they have given in life, the struggles in being a senior, which is it society? Is it health? Is it money? And also a warning to the youth when to start taking care of your seniorship so that it doesn't come up and bite you in the butt when you get there. And I think also teaching people to have respect for the elders and all that they've contributed, mess or not mess, right? They've done what within the parameters of what was going on there. But, I think that there's too much, especially in North America, of dismissal of elders rather than incorporate the wisdom that they've acquired through their lifetime. And if we could put young and elders together, the young have the enthusiasm and the energy, but they're fueled with the tools of the wisdom of the elders. So that's the next book. I have a mentors directory, which is for people that I've interviewed. They have their Y show, they have their business show, and it's just mentors, which is easier to find who they are and what they're offering, and then listen to the shows. And I'm also a personality trait discoverer, where I take people through true colors, a view of life, which is metaphorical journey, and I take their astrology, Chinese geology, and numerology, and I find the common denominators of your strengths and your weaknesses that can be strengths, and weaknesses that need to be handed to someone else.
Wow. Well, just a few things
Just
that
a few
are
things. Yes.
swirling around you.
Yes. And of course, podcasting. 4 shows a week normally.
Wow. Well, and that's when I was on your show, you were asking me, well, under which genre do you want to be?
Yes.
And
Yes.
I just scrolled through and scrolled through. There are so many, Sarah.
Yes, there's about 20 because, again, with podcasting, when you're looking at, I mean, in YouTube and Spotify, not Spotify, SoundCloud, you can go to the different genres. But in all the others, it's just streamlined. So I wanted to break the shows up according to categories. So whether it's health, mental health, sensuality, spirituality, business, children, veterans, animals, music, it's where do you fit? So somebody looking for a show, they've at least got somewhat of a category that they can explore in rather than the 3,800 shows there.
That's a lot, 3,800. Ah, round of
800,
applause to
eight
you.
hundred done by other hosts that I had before COVID, and the rest is done by me. So,
Remarkable. It's so remarkable. I love this. And so when well, what's your favorite topic? What's your favorite
oh,
genre?
I've got a few. Music is always close to me because I think music is such a soul language. I love interviewing musicians because they're already in their heart and soul. But I have a genre called Igniting Your Heart and Soul. And I love those ones because they're very much about spirituality and heart, soul, spirit, raising our frequency, our good vibrations to, God, universe, soul, spirit, energy, whatever you want to call it, but the tapping in order to download. So those are my freedom ones because I can really expand on that. But really, it's not so much about the genres as the people, like yourself, just people coming with an open heart, wanting to share all that is lit your life. And you want to share that illumination with other people. I'm not for the egomaniacs and not for the rah rah, or I've got 10 million followers. No, I don't want that. I want heart and soul coming to the shows. And this was my journey. This is why I do what I do. And this is why I long to serve other people. And that's really was the common denominator in any genre.
Yeah. Yeah, I can tell. I definitely tell. And you have an animal one. You got,
Yes, yes.
animals speak to us, don't they?
Oh boy, they do. I mean, trees, animals, everything has a vibration and a signature, but animals especially. Horses, their heart's kind of 3 times the size and they radiate that heart, and people that are in that vicinity calm down. So many shows on horse therapy, obviously dogs and even cats, although they're more aloof. But yes, it's, but also obviously the children. I've got our Forgotten Children series, which was around that, but also raising our gifted children, veterans. I'm very anti-war, very. But when it comes to the veterans, when they come back and they find there's something they need that's missing, and they create it for themselves and for their fellow veterans and families, and it expands out because they've got that discipline and structure and they know how to do it. I celebrate them. So but yeah, and the musicians, it's somebody starting out, somebody being in the business 60 years and taking that journey with them, I love it. So, and the business ones too. A lot of people think business has to be kind of tough and ruthless and hardcore. No, if your heart isn't in the business that you're doing, you're in the wrong business and you're serving the wrong people. So the business shows are all about those people that mostly have taken a redirect and now doing something they love to serve others.
Yes. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Um, there are so many people who wanna get started
Mm.
in entrepreneurship and
Yes.
just feel like they have to sell something, or
Yeah.
and don't listen to that deeper wisdom saying, "Go here, do this,
Hmm.
follow
Yes.
this path."
Yeah.
Right.
And there's the many coaches inside of people because they're sharing the knowledge that set you free. Whether it's a program, people discover certain things along the way. They create a program or discover a program that works for them. The light comes on, and you want to share that illumination. And it's like it's not for you to keep to yourself. It is for you. It is your meaningful purpose. Everything that you went through has been a precursor to what you are meant to do. It's just giving you
Yeah.
tools and skills that now you apply to the passion. And when you've got a coach or somebody that I always say that inspiration begets invitation. When you're inspired by what you hear, you're invited to either pivot or reach out, but it changes you. So the motto of my shows is listen, learn, and apply.
Yes. Yeah. Apply.
Apply.
Absolutely apply.
Yes.
Yes.
Whether it's just a tiny inch, a little pivot, but it's that there's always something you can apply, right? Even if it's a different mindset to the way you're looking at things.
Mhm. Yep, just a little perception shift
Yes,
can do wonders.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, like you said, a lot of people start off with the entrepreneur and go, oh, it's all got to be perfect. I've got to have this done and this done and this done and this done. I don't know how many people have started off and realized, you know what, this works, that doesn't work, pivot, 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 right? Change direction. It's not, you're not being, well, I'm not sure what the word is. There's a word for people that change their minds. I can't remember what it is right now. But you are adjusting you're putting out what you want to put out there, but you're adjusting how you develop it according to your feedback, according to the people that you serve. And that's what you should do.
Yeah.
You can set the stage, but the stage is going to change with each act. So don't kind of feel I've got to have it all perfect. You've got to have the intention there of that passion and inspiration that's going to bring people in, and then navigate it from there.
Yeah. Yes. So beautiful. So you are, just speaking with you these few times that I have, you are very spiritual and spiritually based.
Mm-hmm.
So what got you started on that path?
Born that way, born that way.
Really?
And I think also a lot to do with my illness, because I'd be in a white room on my own for so long, get breakfast, lunch, dinner. If I had an asthma attack, my mum would be there, but on my own a great deal. And I would go off into other dimensions. Some people call it imagination, but I'm living in a different world because this world is dull. So I'm off elsewhere. And it's just, my mother was Faye, grandmother Faye, and we've always had that ability to see, beyond the veil. And so I was a reader for many, many years. I don't do it anymore. I've always been a seer of possibilities and what can happen, a whole path. And I'm a downloader, a channeler, and I am channeled what I need to know when I need to know it. I call it the knowingness. And so it's always been there, and it's always been my compass. As I said, I haven't always been bright enough to follow it. But when I finally surrendered to it and just became, this is where the peace is.
Yeah. This is where the peace is.
Mm.
Ah, I do love that line.
Mhm.
Yeah. And tell me more about how you, so before you started podcasting, you were a coach. Is that true? Is that what you did?
Yes, I did. I had this as a discovery of self program, but I've also owned a dress store, a restaurant. Um, I've worked in the theater industry. I'm a something doesn't work, I move forward and try something else. My mother was an actress, stage actress. So kind of I was always the other characters when she's learning a part. And then I worked in the stage for a while. Um, I've owned my own restaurant with my ex-husband. I've had my own dress store. Um, Unfortunately, it got burgled and everything got taken out, and the insurance took too long to pay out for me to continue. But, it's like I feel if you don't try, you don't know you succeed. And for me, failure is when you give up. But if something didn't work, okay, it didn't work. But what did you learn from it? Are you meant to go down this path, or are you just meant to take information from this and apply it to a different path? So I've done many things in my life. But the spiritual counseling has always been core, not by my design. That I'm always put into places where there's somebody I need to speak to, that are needing to hear it, when they need to hear it, and that's happened throughout my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's so wonderful about you is that you're willing to take that path.
Hmm. Yeah.
Not everybody is.
No, I think so many people get stuck in, well, I failed at this. How can I succeed in anything else? And I always think it's like, I've had people who've deemed me a failure because I'm not rich by any means. You do not make much money at podcasting, let me tell you. Um, but it is, I am enriched. I'm enriched and I feel abundant. Your bank account doesn't agree, but I do. Like the heart and soul is fed, the spirit is fed. And I think looking at economy, a lot of people just look at money. And I know so many people who are money rich, but heart and soul poor. In fact, we're seeing it a great deal across politicians at the present moment, and huge people. And I think it's like, if the heart and soul isn't enriched by what you do, no amount of money is going to make you fill that gap. So yes, we all need to make money, absolutely. And the more money we make, the more we could see possibilities for other people, or expand, or do something else, have better quality of life, absolutely. But I think if you're driven by the money, you'll never be enriched by the process.
Mm, that's so true. That's so true. So, what are some of the strengths and assets that you have had naturally, but also have had to develop along the way? You have had so many different iterations of entrepreneurship in your life. So, what have you developed along the way? And you said that, this is feedback for a lot of
Mm.
things. This is feedback that I'm supposed to take forward with me into the next
Yes.
venture. So, what are some things that you've learned along the way, and what are some things that are just inherent for you?
The inherent is that knowingness, right? That is like, when that pops up, I can't argue. It literally feels like something pushing back. You cannot go further down this path, right? Or when something's come to an end, it's at an end, finished, klar, that's done. There is no resurrecting. But there may be an awful lot of me turning the other cheek, or trying to, I'm a horribly loyal person, stupidly many times. And then it gets to be, as they say, one straw too many, right? And then that door closes, and there is no way, hope in hell, that it's going to open, whether it's a person or whether it's something I'm doing, a direction I need to go in. And so I've learned there's no arguing with that. And as much as I think, well, I should push through, I can't. It's a closed door. And I think I undersold myself, actually, I think, because I have dyslexia and ADD. Long before, of course, anybody ever diagnosed anything. Back in my day, you were just slow. You were just unable to learn. So I could not learn the way school was teaching me. So life taught me. And I haven't still to this day got in the true colors, there's one color called gold, and that is the structure builder. You give it the blueprint and it builds the foundation and the structure. I don't have that. I can tell you exactly what it's going to look like, who's going to enjoy it, who's going to come, what we're going to serve, the whole tutti frutti, but I can't build that structure, and I never have. And I was surrounded by people that were structurists. And so it always made me feel, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do that? But I just cannot stay in that attention if it does not resonate with me. When it resonates, you've got a 250% of me, right? So I think the learning through life is to give myself a break, that I haven't lived up to somebody else's standard, and realize it's not about standard. It's about conviction, and that passion of that conviction. And when people feel it from you honestly, then it doesn't matter what a piece of paper says, right? So I've had a few occasions where people have said to me, yes, you could teach this course. However, you do not have the credentials, so nobody will hire you, because I couldn't
Hmm.
do the credential stuff, paperwork, because of my dyslexia. So I've learned to let go of that. If that's how you measure things, by standards, and everybody's got to be now here, there, and here, there for approval, not my people. If you can feel the conviction and the passion and the intent, then my people. And I think I've learned to let go of the other side,
Yeah,
because
good
it's
for
not
you.
serving nobody.
Right, right. But good for you because sometimes that's hard to do.
And I wish that I'd done it way earlier. And basically, it's really in this last 14 years, I've discovered me and my abilities. And you cannot do these amount of shows without it being therapy for yourself, right? So there's so much that it's done for me. And in that reveal is like, I'm enough for Sara. If I'm enough for you, wonderful. If I'm not, you can turn the page. But I'm
Yeah.
no longer going to be hung up on it and feel that I need to
Mm.
change for you, because I ain't changing for nobody no more.
Good for you. Well, and you mentioned something about, in this last 14 years, you figured out who you are. And If you're like me with this, podcasting is very new to me in
Mhm.
comparison to you for sure. I mean, I'm just in month 3, but the fact is that I did not realize just how much I would enjoy having these
Yes.
conversations.
Yes.
Uh,
Mhm.
and I feel the connection with my guests, and
Yes.
I feel the conviction like you were just
Mhm.
talking about. I
Mhm.
feel that.
Mhm.
And is that what you've noticed along this
A
venture?
lot of people think that you have to be face to face with someone to kind of feel them. And the first 5.5 years, I only did audio. And then a friend said, "Miss Sarah, come on, it's time to do video." The first thing out of my mouth was, "Who wants to see this old bag on video?" And then from the back of my head came my other hand, whacked me and said, "It's not about you, it's about the content." Right? And then now, of course, for 9 years, I've been doing videos since 2018. So, yeah, 8.5 years. And so it was me getting out of my own way, my own prejudice, other people's. And I get people all the time, especially family members. You need to do this. You should do that. And it's like, okay, you need to do this in your business. Don't tell me what to do in my business. Uh-huh. So unless you're a podcaster, I will take critique, but not criticism, right? Because where is it coming from? Do you know the field? I've had a lot of people say to me, "You need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this, you need to do that." No, I need to be true to Sarah. Because if I'm true to Sarah, then I could be true to the person that is on the other side of the camera, right? I can be, you don't want somebody that's just doing it by numbers because people will feel it, right? And it's the energy that we're exuding out. It's the energy that's being shared. And that energy is unknowingly lifting someone up, whether they're listening to the content or not.
Yes. Yes, we don't get to choose who we inspire.
No.
We just don't.
And that's something that people need to let go of. And authors have realized this. When you put a book out there, it's got its own legs now. Who picks it up, how they read it, what they get from it is completely out of your control. Same with podcasting, right? You put it out there, what people do with it. And this is why I suggest podcast parties. You get together, glass of wine, cup of coffee, whatever you want to do, listen to a podcast, take notes, then share the notes afterwards. Each person would have had something different from that podcast. And now you've made that podcast even rounder and deeper through all your different perspectives.
Yes.
Just takes the
Yes.
story and the conversation even further.
I love that idea. I love that
You
idea.
do it
It's
for
like
a
a
book
book
club.
club
Why
only
can't
for
you do it for a
podcast.
podcast? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right?
Oh, I love it. We're doing this.
Yes. And the thing is that, you're seeing it from where you're at. When somebody else sees it from where they're at, "Oh, I hadn't seen it that way. I hadn't thought about that. Really? Oh, wow, it's just expanded for me." Right? And I think
Yeah.
we need more of that expansion.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I do that with my clients. I play a video and I ask everybody, what's your biggest takeaway? And
Mhm.
all of them are different.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what makes it, and that's the thing is, do we all want to get the same thing? Do we all want the same chocolate? No. I think one of the things that people need to understand, it doesn't matter if we've all got two eyes, a nose, and a mouth, etc. We are all beautifully different because we're all wired differently. And we may have a vibe tribe where we feel our frequencies are dancing together. People that you relate to more, others that you don't. You don't have to make the other person your enemy, right? It's just they're not your vibe tribe. But for us to actually understand black, white, pink, yellow, polka dot doesn't matter. We're all the same, all desiring the same things fundamentally in life. And when we start talking to each other instead of at each other, we will grow as a human race with a great deal more of compassion.
Oh, isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? Let's start listening to each other and talking
Mhm.
with each other. Yes, I love
Yes.
that. I love that. Ah, thank you
But,
for that wisdom.
again, that's a form of control again, going back to the limitation school, media, and all of that. And this is why podcasting is so powerful. because it's a free area where you can really talk honestly and openly, that you can't do on others media platforms because they're owned by the conglomerate that dictates what can be said and not said. Here,
Mhm.
you can be open and honest. And it isn't
Yeah.
about bashing and conspiracy theories, or, you can question, most certainly, but, getting out there in the hate rhetoric. No, go somewhere else. This is about the love rhetoric, love of self and love of each other, love of our community, love of human society, love and appreciation for this planet and all that provide and live on it. If we could step into gratitude just so much more, I think we'll begin to see the solution and stop worrying about the problem.
Mhm. Yes, there is way too much focus on the problem, isn't there?
We become the problem because we focus too much on it and we
Yeah.
can't see the solution. But that's part of the control. That's part of the string being pulled. And, it's, yes, the politicians, but it's the big conglomerates that are behind. They've been doing it for years. And we need to look at it and say, it doesn't take them out of the equation right now. If you're hurt, if you're suffering, the only person that can help you get out of it is you. There are people on the other side of the street that have got the skills and the tools ready for you to apply, ready to help you along your way. But you have to be the one and apply it. It's your journey to walk. It's your choice to move away from that. I like the darkness because I become the light in the darkness, but the darkness that suppresses you rather than that darkness where you are the illumination. And to get to that darkness where you are the illumination, you've got to go through the process. And it's stop blaming everyone for where you are. You may have had things happen to you, and believe me, the stories I've heard along here of what has been done to human beings by other human beings is just gut-wrenching. But they made a choice. I am not going to be the victim anymore. I am going to rise above this. I'm going to make this for me. I'm going to find my strength, my courage, my empowerment, my purpose because of this. And I am
Yeah.
going to be that light for others. That's the invitation. But it is a choice to live in misery or to live in joy.
It is. That reminds me of Viktor Frankl in the,
Mhm,
concentration camps in World War
mhm.
II,
Yeah.
you know? Man's
Yes.
search for meaning.
Yes.
Um, you said something important that I think needs to be illuminated. You said that you like the dark because in the dark you
Mm.
can be the light. So, tell us a little bit more about what that means to you.
For about an 8-year period in my life, I kind of went into the dark. My marriage was very tumultuous. Not a physical beater, but what I call a brow beater, piranha, suck the energy out of you. And in order to protect my soul, I kind of retreated into the dark. Now, on the facade, Sarah was still very functional, serving everyone else. But I had gone into this. Um, and it was at a period where I could always see the light there beckoning me. And then there came in a realization, kind of 7th, 8th year, you better get out there because you're developing apathy. And apathy is when you do not care anymore at all. And that's more dangerous than anything else. And I came out into the light and it blinded me at first. Right. And I felt like shadows were chasing me from the darkness, trying to pull me back in. Until the further I moved forward, I realized the shadows were not chasing me. They were contouring the light and giving it shape and meaning. So now I can dance with the shade and the light because it gives perspective and a view on things. And if I'm looking for peace, I like to go into that darkness where I see nothing. And then I become the light and I see all that I'm meant to see. But I'm at peace there. I'm no longer suppressed by it. It's become my friend.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Ah, I love that. And I think that that can give a lot of people hope
Mhm.
in those darker times.
But the choice is to come out into the light. And I know that it's blinding at first. But just keep walking forward, one step in front of the other. The biggest
Mm,
leap is the first step.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Now, Sarah, we're coming to a close eventually here, but you have so many books over your shoulder. Would you like
Yes.
to tell us a little bit about those?
Well, the Dare to Live Fearlessly is an anthology that I contributed to. The Sarah's Self-Discovery to Soul Living is my book, my journey. Our Forgotten Children is the anthology around children, which, of course, Our Forgotten Seniors are coming out. And Mission Accepted, you can see how thick this book is 262 women in. And each of us contribute a ray of light, or, a short story. And that book has gone to the Emmys, the Oscars. It's gone everywhere. It was at the Oscars recently. It's like a 5-year journey done by Deb Drummond, amazing woman. And it's also, I've interviewed 50 people from the book. So more in-depth conversations. And it's people that have had their own rocky path, that have stepped into their light, that want to illuminate somebody else's path. But it's a celebration of women. And last year I decided to create a new genre, and it's the sisterhood of common sense love, and all the men that love and support them. Because we are in the era of women, feminine energy, rolling up our sleeves in common sense and saying no more. No more. We are now going to put things right, going to clean house, and we're not going to put up with this whining and this bitching anymore. Or, Johnny, you be nice to George, etc. And we're just going to put things right. The other books that you see around me down on the bottom shelf and at the top shelf, and there's more over there, are people I've interviewed through the years. So many send me their books, and which is great. And these books down at the bottom here, where you can see the one flamingo dancer and the other ones, are my brother's books. So I always interview him on his books as well.
Oh, wonderful. So when did you had been doing your podcast for quite some time before you decided to make a book out of it, yes?
Yes, well, the 2017, we did a book about, self-discovery, and so that was just an ebook, which is available on Amazon. And then the 24 is when they are forgotten children. That was a 5-year journey to get the people for that. And unfortunately, right now it's been a 2-year journey with the forgotten seniors, because finding people who will commit and share their story. Because people always say yes and then don't commit. That's nature of people. But all of these other books kind of within, oh yes, I'm not selfish. And there it is. I'm not selfish. I'm not easily manipulated is another book. It's in ebook right now. She's still putting out the paperback. But yes, it's all about, expanding the story just from podcasting, or whether people read the book and listen to the podcast or podcast to the book. It's about, again, like, sharing those voices and solidify them even more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's wonderful. It's such a wonderful way to enhance the entire
Hmm.
experience, isn't it?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Because many people, as you know, people learn in different ways, and so
Yes.
people consume information in different ways.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And, again, it's back to, I call these shows are awareness shows, right? They're invitation and awareness shows, but also the books are about awareness, because I think that so often when we read something from somebody else's journey, or when we listen from somebody else's journey, when we become aware, we then become reflective of how much that's going on in our own lives or going on around me, and I was unaware. And I really do believe that when we're unaware, as much as you'd like to not be unaware anymore, you are. And, this is the time to care. This is the time to be a part of making the change, whether it's in your life. And if people say, I'm only one person and I can't be the change the world needs, I say, boulder dash, yes, you can. Because when you make a change in your own life and your own frequency rises up to that of self-love and meaningful purpose, you have already contributed to making a change to the world.
Yes. More people need to hear that message. Yeah.
We
I
are the
love it.
love, we are the change, we are the answer we seek, but we must apply it to self first.
Yep. Absolutely. So when you so the two books, the Forgotten Children and Our Forgotten Seniors, um, why do you use the word forgotten in them?
Because I do feel that children are forgotten a great deal. It's all about conformity, and we're forgetting the essence of who they are, the reason for we're all here for a reason. We're all here with a gift to share. That's our contribution as a soul, as a heart, which I believe we are that before we're a body. And I think if we look at the essence of our children and nurture that instead of dismissing it and forgetting it, but also there are so many children that are forgotten. And a lot of children, I have a grandson with Down syndrome. There's a lot of children with, I call them differently abled. I'm actually going to be interviewing somebody, and she said, no, neurodivergent, we don't say differently abled or disabled anymore. So there's a lot of different terminology around it. But is that why are we ostracizing people from being different? Why don't we just look at them as a different instrument that we need to hear? And I think that's why we need to talk about it. That's why there need to be books on it, and this is why we need to expand out on it. So that was around the children, and I'm a senior. I know how hard it is being a senior, and and I do feel, especially in North America, other cultures revere their elders, revere and respect. North American culture, Western culture in general, does not. And I think that we need to change that whole perspective. It's almost, oh, you're old, out to pasture now. Next, it's all about the young. And no, it
Mhm.
isn't.
Well, where's all the wisdom?
Exactly. And we've paid our dues. Thank you very much. We're
Absolutely.
entitled to a little piece now. And,
Mhm.
to share what we have learned. What you do with it is what you do with it. But allow us
Yeah.
to share it. Do not dismiss us just because we
Yeah.
may have challenges now.
Yeah. Are you still actively seeking authors
Yes.
for the senior book? Yes. Okay.
Yes, for the seniors book, actively seeking that. And then, of course, I'd love to do another Our Children's Forgotten Children book too, but actively seeking them. And but the contribution is two shows, the why, and then around the chapter. Obviously, the chapter, and two summits. And also, I want people that will be proactive with it. The very small charge. Last time I didn't, and it came out of my pocket. So this time, a little charge on it. But people that are committed, 55 up, kind of prefer the 60, but 55 is fine. But people who have got really something to share, about their contribution.
Yeah.
So, and for people to read this in a way that not just for elders to read, for young to read and to actually understand. Would you have your iPhone, your iWatch, your this and that today without the people that paved the path beforehand? And I think a little respect and gratitude needs to be there, and understanding. We may not have always done things right, but there's a lot that we contributed that you're using today.
Well, yes. Absolutely. I don't think that anybody could refute that at all.
A lot of the young people think they did it all,
Oh.
from the womb.
Well, we have to set them right, Sarah. We have to set
Absolutely.
them right. Well, where, Sarah, can people go to reach you and learn more about you and connect with your work?
Well, they can go to selfdiscoverywisdom.com for the podcast. And if you go to where the podcast tag is, or go self-discovery-wisdom/shows, you'll see all the podcast genres there. Generally on the sidebar, you'll see the latest show there. If you go to the orchardofwisdom.org, you'll see where to get the book, how to sign up to be a senior, where the mentors are, the mentorship program is. So that's more of that side of it, of the platform. And you can reach out to me at selfdiscoverywisdom@gmail.com.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, Sarah, this has been such a treat for me to speak with you further. And do you have any parting words for our audience?
I think going back to the word allow, allowing actually means allowing to surrender. We are so taught to be in control. And if we're in control, if we're not in control, we're too vulnerable. Vulnerability is the greatest gift you can give yourself. Surrendering to that vulnerability and allowing the universe, God, universe, source, spirit, whatever you wish to call it, to guide it, to be your compass, to resonate with your heart in truth, to lift your spirit into action, and for your mind to know what it needs to know in clarity when it needs to know it, will always lead you right.
Oh, I love that. Sara, thank you so much for being a guest on Economy
Thank you so much.
Creators.
Thank you.
Oh,
And don't
wonderful.
forget to come back, folks, and simply put in her name under selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Simply put in her name. Her show will come up. It's all about her, and you've got to know what she's doing. So please come and listen.
Oh, thank you, Sara. Thank you.